Since President Donald Trump announced his COVID-19 diagnosis to his millions of followers on social media, he's used the platforms to make dubious claims about the disease, like that it's less dangerous than the flu. The president is no stranger when it comes to sharing false information on social media, but his approach of providing his own thoughts on COVID-19 have opened the doors to mis- and disinformation.
The president has clearly attempted to shape the public health messaging to fit his theory of the case, rather than going to the scientists at the CDC, at the NIH, understanding the problem, and then shaping his messaging to reflect that science.
You have the president saying one thing on Twitter, then you have the chief of staff of the White House saying something else, and what that results in is apart from just chaos, is the rise of conspiracy theory and the rise of dis and misinformation.
Even before Trump's diagnosis, he was seen as a super spreader of false COVID info, suggesting that most cases were harmless, that children are virtually immune, and that the virus would someday just disappear. Cornell University researchers analyzed 38 million English language articles about the pandemic and found Trump was responsible for more than a third of the misinformation conversation.
People like Donald Trump are able to use social media in such a fashion and then benefit also from the numbers of bots and sock puppets and fake traffic that are there in such a way that they create the illusion of consensus around these ideas that they're bringing up.
Critics say Trump's approach has driven a wedge in the public's understanding about the disease and whether the president can be trusted.
The national average of folks who believe that the president is responsible for a great deal of misinformation circulating today is 58%. Among young people 18 to 34, that number is 68%. 94% of Democrats believe that, 58% of independents, and only 11% of Republicans.
There have been calls for social media companies to do more to stop these false information spreads, but their approaches haven't been uniform. For instance, Twitter recently blocked a claim where Trump said he was immune from COVID. Facebook took no action. When Trump's posts have been blocked, he's reacted by calling for the repeal of Section 230. A law social media companies value because it protects them in how they regulate content. On Wednesday, he reiterated this threat after Twitter and Facebook limited the spread of a New York Post story he tweeted about. Scientists who work for the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative worried that this lack of action around scientific misinformation could have public health consequences. They sent a letter to Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg earlier this year, urging him to adopt stricter rules on misinformation.
The mission statement of CZI is to better society and find cures for disease. And so it's very frustrating when you see misinformation on Facebook, especially related to COVID, for example, where it really does result in, potentially life or death for people. There's the fact that now the public is starting to mistrust scientists. And then, so for us, that's making our job, harder and harder. Because at some point, for example, we're going to say, hey, he has a vaccine for COVID, and there's already mistrust about this.
Shepard added that social media platforms need to take a harder line on removing false scientific information.
At some point, this is going to be about climate change and various other aspects of society where scientists can contribute to solving those problems.
Tyler Atkinson, Newsy, Chicago.